So welcome back to Outside the Box, our EMS podcast here at the Sugar Land Fire Department, where we're driving our clinical performance. And welcome back to our special guest, Jay Barrera. We have seen him before. And today we're going to talk about your experience in education and training. So not clinical today, but we're going to talk about learning and growing. So thanks for being back. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back.
And let's take a quick minute and recap some of your professional progression as it pertains to EMS education and training.
Okay. Well, I got into EMS 2005, EMT for a couple of years. Became a paramedic, I want to say it was 2007. Worked for Austin County EMS as a local rural, not Austin, Texas, but Austin County, which is Sealy, Belleville area. I was a paramedic for them for quite some time. Learned a lot about rural medicine, learned a lot about just medicine as a whole. Then came out to West I-10 Fire Department. And then they transitioned into ESD 48, which is where I'm at now. My big reason for actually going from Austin County to West I-10 was just a desire for more training, a desire to become better. And unfortunately, the small county service just doesn't have a big training budget. You rely heavily on people that are willing to bring something at low or no cost. And so had the opportunity to kind of go to the Katy area, and went to my first cadaver lab there. Really enjoyed that, and then just they would have almost quarterly trainings that we could have, but they were very personal, and you didn't have to pretend that you were somewhere clinically that you weren't in the sense of your knowledge and your education, and so as we grew, so did that. Then we hired a guy out of Chicago to come, and he really kind of revamped a lot of the stuff. Good guy, I like him, but don't let him know that.
He sounds great.
Yeah. And then he left for another opportunity, and when he left, I had actually, he was a combination of things. He was a big inspiration to pursue my education more, but also my mother, I promised her I would finish it when she was sick, and so I got my bachelor's degree at 49 years of age in emergency medical services administration through Columbia Southern University, and then applied for your old position after you left, and was fortunate enough to get it, and have learned a lot from the time that you were there on, just a lot about like requirements that you need for education, not only just for yourself, but also when you're doing training, developing lesson plans and having the different, you got to hit the cognitive and the psychomotor and the affective domains of teaching somebody and what that means. And then how do you do it all in one training, and just some of the, kind of progressed it to the point now I'm doing what I call it the crawl, walk, run, sprint. And so we're working on some things there to try to take those things and run with it. But then also not to be the only guy that's doing all the teaching, trying to get the FTOs and the other training captains to start developing those things so that we can have a curriculum on our own.
Well, see, this is why I bring you in, so people don't have to listen to me. So you're the one that gets to listen to me. Everybody else gets to listen to you, I guess.
Yeah.
So, all right. So in your time in the field, how much time did you get to spend as an FTO? You get a whole lot of years there? I
got a few years there. I can't remember when we officially got the title. We certainly had the responsibility before the actual title. Mm-hmm. And when we stepped in, again, we were growing. So there was a number of us, I say numbers, probably 4 or 5 of us that started to do it. And it was really more of a volunteer step before it became a paid step. And so, but for me, it was never about the money. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like money like everybody else, but I was very excited about having that opportunity to teach somebody something. And so I want to say it was like 5 or 6 years, maybe 7. I don't really recall. And when I came in there, I was excited to do it, but I had no experience doing it. Because, I mean, I had an FTO. I had an EMT FTO when I was in Austin County who ended up being my partner for a very long time. And so that was really kind of the only true FTO type training that I had ever received. When I became a paramedic, like most of the time, we were short-staffed. We needed a body to fill a hole. So it was like fly. and so you go out there and you do the best you can with what you got. And so when I first started out, I was under the impression that if you were my trainee, it was your responsibility to come to me and tell me what you needed. Mm-hmm. It was not my responsibility to come to you and say, hey, let me bring you along on this journey. And that was entirely wrong.
Interesting. So if I hear your experience correctly, you become a paramedic. You do this job well enough. Mm-hmm. Here's somebody, teach them something.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So it sounds like, some things just carry throughout this industry, no matter where you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was my similar experience starting in EMS in a different part of the country. That it was, the ink was barely dry on my paramedic license. And then my partner had less experience than that as an EMTB. And it was, well, there you go, guys. See you later.
Right.
So kind of went well-ish.
Yep.
But there we are.
And it's not any department's fault. I want to make sure that it's just you do what you can with what you got.
I think this is an industry thing.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
This is an industry thing that we fail to recognize that teaching, managing, even leading in general across the two is a totally different skill set.
Oh, yeah.
But you come out of school with the clinical skill set, mm-hmm. kind of, and you have the clinical knowledge, and then you're expected to be a subject matter expert on it because you went to school.
Right.
Well, what's your problem? Why don't you know it? And then we put somebody next to you because you're good at it. That's the other thing. I think that's what our industry does very well is we destroy good people that way. Is we take somebody who's really good at their job, EMS, fire, whatever it is, mm-hmm. and we put somebody next to them and say, Jay, teach this person to do it like you do. And then you struggle because you don't have the skills to do it. You don't have the understanding to convey this knowledge to somebody else. And now you feel like crap.
Oh, yeah.
And then I looked at you and I'm like, what's your problem? I thought you were good.
Right.
Right. And then, because we're so comforting with each other in this industry.
Absolutely.
Like, you piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Right. And I think now, recent years, we're starting to really appreciate that this is a separate skill set.
Oh, absolutely.
Hence the reason to bring you on talking about training and your experiences in FTO. And I'm wondering how many experiences are going to sound similar to some of you listening as we move through some of this.
Right.
Right. So not a lot of preparation in being picked for an FTO, that you're kind of, here, you're certified.
Right. I was a nice enough guy. I don't know all the factors. I studied hard. I worked hard because I wanted to know my job, but I didn't know how to translate that over to, let me show you this. Mm-hmm. Let me show you how to not make the mistakes I did. Let me show you, and that took a lot of patience, if you will. And sometimes patience is something you have to learn. That I expect you to do something, I expect you to do it right the first time. But if you struggle with that, how do I then not destroy your self-confidence, your self-esteem, but still get you to learn the whatever it is that you need to learn? And you walk out thinking, oh, he really cares about me, or she really cares about me in a professional setting and doesn't want me to fail. Mm-hmm. Even if I fail, it's like Jocko said, you didn't fail, you learned. So, and that's really been a big transition point for me of trying to take that approach to it.
We're going to talk about that transition too, because I've seen you teach, mm-hmm. both to a crowd, to individuals. Like I've seen this, and you do it well.
Thank you.
And I have learned a lot from you on trauma management. That when I came to Texas, whole blood was a new thing for me to learn about.
Right.
And here you are with some experience in it, and you're an FTO, and great, let's start learning some knowledge about this. So I've learned from you. I've gotten to have this firsthand experience of it. Very fortunate of that. So there's our end point,
right?
Is that here's Jay Barrera that can speak well, he can package a product, he can deliver it. I have seen the pediatric drowning material you've put out, and I'm stealing it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Appreciate
yes.
it.
I'll give you the actual.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Just do screen recording. Why not?
Yeah, that's it.
Sure. You put together this good package.
Thanks.
You're able to deliver it well. And clearly there was at some point in your career that you could not have done that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about this middle ground. What are some things, and I'm going to give you a lot of credit here, that you're a very driven man. You're a very good professional. You've gone out and sought a lot of this stuff on your own, and I don't think people have shown up at your door with packages of education on how to teach better.
Right.
There may have been some of that, but I think a large majority comes out of you seeking opportunities and creating opportunities. And that's what I want you to share with us is what are some of these formative opportunities that you had come across that get you to this point now of being an effective educator?
So I think the first one is people that kind of came into my life, right? In the EMS world. We all know that one paramedic that we don't want working on our family, right? I mean, unfortunately, they're in every department, everywhere. We don't want to be that guy. And if you don't know who that guy is, you might be that guy, right? So we hope not.
Dang, calling you out, guys.
Right? But, when I first got into it, much like the public, I mean, to me, an ambulance was an ambulance was an ambulance. There was no difference between an EMT and a paramedic. They were all EMTs. They were all ambulance drivers, right? We hate that word. And when I started my first shift, the supervisor that came in that day, and I've mentioned to him before, Mark Karonica, he works for Austin Travis County, worked there, and he and I just hit it off personally. And in talking, one of the things that he did was, what are your expectations? What are you wanting out of this job? And nobody had asked me that yet. I think I told you before I got into it because I just needed first aid training, But he's like, "What do you want?" And I just thought, I thought about, I don't know. It's the first day. I don't know what to expect. And so, as our friendship increased, he really and he was much younger than me, but he really kind of became a mentor to take the time and say, we were checking off the truck one day, and in Austin County, they have the throw bags, like if somebody's stuck in rapid water, right? I'd seen them, but I didn't know how to use it. And he literally said, "Hey, have you seen this?" "Yeah, I've seen it." "You know how to use it?" "Oh, no, I don't know nothing about it." "Well, let me show you." And he shows me right there, and it was that little bitty thing of, and he said it, and I use his line today. Everybody starts out not knowing anything. And I can ride you all day long about not knowing something, but if you don't ask, that's on you. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you all day long what you want to know, but I'm also going to tell you the things that you need to know as we get going. And so, and again, like I said, he was a supervisor. I was a brand new EMT. We still talk to this day. We talk quite a bit, and we still challenge each other on different calls that we've had. And hey, what do you think about this and all that? And having that was like the first step of everything, because I was like, that's what I want to be like. I want to be the guy that somebody new shows up to. Hey, let me take you and show you this, because our job is really cool. Yeah. I mean, no matter your skill level, the things we get to do are really pretty awesome. Even something as simple as starting an IV. How many times you get to stab somebody, right? You're like, "Oh, it's just an IV." Yeah, but I get to stick this guy. And, whether he's a nice guy or he's a jerk, they still get the same treatment, and they still get the same, I'm not mean about it. I'm not saying let's be mean about things, but, it's a pretty cool job of what we get to do. And so that excitement level made me excited about what we were doing. And so, because I've had the flip side where you're with somebody and like, all right, we got to go over the vent, or we're gonna go over whatever the topic can be, and their excitement really kind of sets the tone and the pace. And when I was with Mark would be very excited about talking about these things, and he challenged me, whether it was intentional or not. He challenged me to want to be able to talk on a level that he was at, and I was not there. Mm-hmm. I remember there's another guy, Matt Vasquez. Matt. Mm-hmm. I asked him. I went to his office one day and I said, "Look," and he knows Mark, and I said, "Hey, look, I keep having these conversations with Mark, and he's talking up here, and I feel like I'm right here. How do I get to be up here?" And he's like, "Okay, we're going to start doing this." And that's when I started going to conferences, and that's when he would give me articles to read, and and it was just, and then he would ask me about it, and that transition. And when you came in and we started talking about things, and it's very much, I would say the first step is having those people in your life that challenge you to be better, that don't accept mediocrity as the standard. It's like, look, here's the bar. You either meet it or you die trying to attain it. But, and we're never going to attain it, right? Mm-hmm. We want to be excellent, but I don't know that we ever get to excellent, because we're going to have a bad call. We're going to make a mistake.
Well, Simon Sinek talks about that whole concept. There's a whole infinite gain concept that he talks about. So
right. Yes. So, but having those people in your life is absolutely the first step, and having the right people in your life is a huge thing, because there's a lot of people they want to be FTOs because they want the pay, or they want the recognition, or they want their thing to say, "Hey, FTO." But maybe they can't teach, or maybe they have the worst attitude, or all these little other things that come in, and they all kind of build up, and you've got to have the right. And like I said, when I started out as an FTO, it was like, hey, it's on you to come to me. No, it's not. It's on me to come to you. And that was the next step for me, is realizing that I'm not doing you any favor. You're not going to be great because I'm not going to let you be great. And we eat our young, and that's not the right way to do things.
So I'm hearing two kind of, I guess, two sides of the same coin out of this lesson. Because we have some younger FTOs. We have some that are just starting out. We have some that it's been, hey, I'm kind of unsure about whatever it is. And I mean, you know me, I'm like, come along. We're going to do it. There's no hiding in the shadows here. So I haven't heard a single specific thing other than the throwback that Mark really did, other than give you this attitude and enthusiasm to be a mentor and be a role model.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
FTOs, be a role model.
Be a role model. It's really that easy.
Be a role model for people. Flip the coin over. Younger folks, newer folks, find yourself a good role model, right? There are plenty of role models, and I love throwing this for some of the older people around to say, hey, I don't want to be a role model. I'm just hanging out over here. There's no hiding in the shadows. There's no free rides. People are watching your behavior, no matter what. People are watching it. And you come around with 20, 30, 40, 50 years on the job, that alone kind of shows people this is acceptable behavior. So careful about the example you're putting out there.
Yep.
Careful what you're showing about people being okay. All right. So FTOs, if you don't know this first step and you're like, I want to, I care, I'm enthusiastic, but what do I do? Just be a good role model. Yeah. Right. Be good at what you do in your behavior, in your attitude. Right. Yeah. And our young people go find somebody good.
Yeah. I would say that's the first step. The second step, and again, this idea comes out to me. It came out, you brought it when you brought the Extreme Ownership book to us. And I printed this out. I made a sign. It's hanging in the office right now, but it's not what you preach. It's what you tolerate. And because we've all, at some point in our lives, been that person that's like, oh, we want to be the best and we want to do this, but we tolerate such mediocrity and tolerate such subpar behavior or subpar performance. And it's like, well, you say you want excellence, but you're willing to accept mediocrity. And it's hard to do sometimes. Maybe you got stuff on your mind. Maybe you got something else. You're like, or his boots aren't polished, fine. But if he stays that way, no, we should address those things right off the bat, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're talking about excellence, but you're not, I don't want to say enforcing, because I don't want it to be like a punitive type thing. But if you're not holding the standard, then you have no standard. Mm-hmm. I've adopted this new phrase at our department: is if you're not training, if you're not failing. Oh, hold on, I got to remember how to do this. If you're training to fail, if you're failing to train, you're training to fail. Let me say that over again. Right? Okay. I have this saying back at this thing: if you're failing to train, then you are training to fail. And that is huge, because and training is not just, oh, our training chief isn't doing something. You can train wherever you're at. I mean, you got guidelines, you got equipment on your truck, you got, you can turn on your monitor and figure out different buttons, all these things. But I digress. I'm in a whole nother area there. But yeah, accept excellence as your standard, or strive for it. If you accept mediocrity, then that's all you're ever going to get is mediocrity. So you've got to be that mentor, but set that standard. And half the time, you become a mentor because you hold a certain standard and people want to emulate that. And that's where it all kind of starts. Those are the first two things, I think.
So be worth being like. And before we get too far from this other concept, because it reminded me of a discussion you and I had years ago, and I'm wondering if you'll remember it because it's kind of unique. But you talked about the idea that I, as the candidate, need to come to you for my training and come teach me something. But when we step at, right, and I get it, right? It's kind of this pecking order. There's a level of hazing involved in earning your place. You come earn your place. Got it. Let's talk about how absurd that is. Yeah. That I want you to come tell me the things you don't know so I can teach you the thing. How am I supposed to know what I don't know? And the conversation we had to emphasize that point, it was you and the crowd, so not just you and I, that at some point, and folks forgive the crude nature of the discussion, at some point in our lives, all of us did not know where to poop. Somebody had to teach us where to poop. So something so rudimentary and fundamental that would cause societal outrage when done in improper places, we had to be taught that. So if we need to be taught something that is just so ingrained in who we are as decent human beings now, what makes us think that higher level clinical concepts and decision making and technical procedures don't deserve the same kind of attention?
Absolutely.
So if you have the knowledge, it's incumbent upon you to share the knowledge.
Absolutely.
So younger folks, less experienced folks, if you hear a concept you don't understand, likewise, it's incumbent upon you to ask about that. That, hey, I heard this word. What does that word even mean?
Right.
What does that do? I don't know. All right. So,
but don't wait for somebody to tell you what it means. Try to find out on your own. Google it.
True. Yeah.
You know, be proactive in what you're trying to do, because if you're not proactive, it makes it very hard for me to want to help you if you're just waiting to be spoon fed.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. So what are some specific things that maybe some conferences, classes, opportunities, whatever it may be, that you look back and you think, man, this was really a good thing to help me with education and instruction? What are some of those good resources you've had?
So the first conference I ever went to was the Critical Care Transport Medicine Conference, CCTMC. And it happened to be in San Antonio. That's why we went, because it was just literally right down the road. I knew it was critical care, and I was like, well, I'm not going to know much. I'm not really a critical care guy. And when I got there, it's so funny, because there was a group of us that went, and we were in the elevator going up to our room, and there's this guy there, and we thought he was just another attendee, right? Introduced ourselves. His name was Faizan Rashad, and we're like, okay, great. It's nice to meet you. Yeah, you here for the conference? Yeah, it's great, you know. Didn't think anything of it until we see him presenting the lecture and find out he's a doctor up in the New York area. And just, I mean, his talk, I don't remember his specific talk because I've seen him a number of times since, but it was phenomenal. And I was like, you know, it's kind of like meeting a rock star, but you don't know it's a rock star, and you see him up on stage kind of a thing. And this is the geeky side of me, okay? Just so, because he's like, he's just a doctor. Nobody cares. But I did, because I was like, man, I talked to this guy in the elevator, man. He was right there. And
it's okay. You live in a small town.
Yeah, that's right. But it was like this whole thing, because then we would see him later, and he's like, hey, guys, how's it going? You like the conference so far? And it was just like, I mean, this guy, he's got all this education. He's a well-known, well, I think he's a well-known doctor, but he's definitely got his stuff together. And he presented a topic that was very exciting for us. And this first conference was like that first, you know, that thing where you just like, it was so awesome that nothing has been able to hit the same level. And so that made me want to learn more and do more. So I remember even driving home from that conference, I'm like, I learned about podcasts, different podcasts these guys want. So I'm like listening to podcasts the whole way home, because I'm like, I'm excited. I want to bring this stuff back to our department. I want to do these cool things. I want us to put us on the map. And so did everybody else that I went with. I mean, we were all excited about this. And after that, it was just like, we can be better. You know, I'm not looking to be just a paramedic anymore. I'm not looking to be just an EMS. I'm looking to be the best in the nation, the best in the state, you know. Oh yeah, best in the nation, whatever. Somebody's got to be. Why not us? And that is kind of the attitude that I adopted from this, because I see all these other people, other medics from departments that I knew, and you know, and I was just like, it's not just me. There's a lot of people out there that want to be great, that want to be excellent. They either may not know how, or they may not have the resources how, and that falls to me to say, hey, let me tell you what I did, and let me bring you along. Now, I'm not saying necessarily the next conference, but let me share the knowledge I got with you and tell you how you can improve your stuff and improve your department, because we shouldn't be competing against one another in a sense, but at the same time, I think it's just natural for us to be like, oh, you're that good? Okay, I'm going to one-up you. You know, I'm going to, you know, and I think a healthy competition is good, but ultimately our job is to take care of patients.
Yeah.
And they deserve the best medic walking through that door. And I plan on being the best medic that walks through the door. If we have a pediatric, and I had this conversation with Mark, if Mark and I are together and we have a pediatric arrest, his mindset, hey, I'm the best medic for this job, get out of my way. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it should be. Right? It shouldn't be, oh, I don't want to write this report. You can take it. I'm not saying we don't have those moments, but we should be excited about what we do. We get to impact people's lives in such a way that could literally save their lives. Literally. I mean,
yeah.
and those are the things that we should be celebrating. Not, oh, I'm on a 48 and I'm tired, and the person that's calling us, they don't realize we're on a 48. They just know they need help, and they deserve the best when they get there.
Yeah.
So are you the best?
Are you? So let's take this, the idea you talked about with, crawl, walk, run, sprinting now on that. Let's make that a little less abstract. Let's take a concept you pick, and how do we take a concept and kind of break it into these steps, which this is a bit of scaffolding is the instructional strategy that we, build on, just like scaffolding in a construction site. Sure. So walk us through some of that. What topic are we going to go with?
So I'll tell you what let me tell you what I'm doing. So for the first quarter of our department of this year, 2023, this all kind of stemmed out of having to get our CE number again from the state. And so I had to submit a plan and, hey, what are you going to teach upon? And I submitted this plan, and then I thought, I should be building upon something. So then it was like, okay, well, how can I take what I've submitted and do that? And so my first topic for January was OB emergencies. And the crawl portion is the cognitive part. It's lecture-based. Maybe it's what I'm doing two things here with the OB emergency for January. We did a Prodigy EMS is who we use for our online CE. And so we sent that OB emergency out for everybody to do. And they had 30 days to finish that particular thing. And then I have one of the FTOs going around, and he's kind of doing a skills portion of OB emergencies. And that's the walk. So crawl is cognitive. Hey, we're giving you this information. The walk is now the skills. Hey, let's go over the different types of OB emergency you could have and what you would do in that case. I bought an OB mannequin, just a half, it was a $700 one, right? And so we're using that to get, because we don't see a lot of pregnancies. And when we hear about them, we're thinking about the mess. We're thinking about, I don't want to screw something up their babies. But what do we do if we have that rare call that, maybe it's a breech presentation or a prolapse cord or whatever? Yeah, we can read about it. But again, I told you before, I'm a very visual learner. So I have to do and see. And so I know we have other people that are like that as well. So we have that second portion. So that was for January, right? February comes, which is what we're in now. And so our online CE, the crawl portion, is the BVM ventilator presentation. We sent out a Prodigy EMS CE on respiratory emergencies. So I've hit the crawl walk on both of those, because today was a day we did the vent and the BVM training. Then we're going to go around this month and do a scenario, in-house scenario-based training. Hey, this is what you've got. Respiratory patient with asthma. How are you going to manage it? Here's the vent. Set it up. So crawl, walk with the skills. The run is the in-house scenario. So March becomes my sprint. And what we're doing is it's going to be outside. Where our admin, you know this, but where our admin building is, there's a creek kind of right next to it with a bridge that goes over it. So I'm going to take a mannequin down, put it underneath the bridge. It's going to be a 28-year-old female, pregnant, 30 weeks, and she's going to be having an asthma attack. They're going to have to extricate her from there to an ambulance that I'm going to have up next to the road. The minute they get inside, she's going to go into labor, and she's going to have an OB emergency problem. Now, there's no stopping and teaching.
Spoiler alert, by the way.
Right? There's no stopping and teaching along the way. It's like, here's your call, go. And the reason I decided to do it this way is because we have no control of what call we're going to get next. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, oh, you're just making it really hard. This could happen. This could be a homeless person who's living underneath the bridge, who has asthma and just happens to be pregnant. And now she's going into labor, and you're stuck with it. The other reason why I'm doing it there is no matter what the weather's going to be, if it's sunny and clear, great. If it's rainy, oh well. If, not that we ever rarely get it, but if it's snowing, we're still doing it because we're going to get called out in all these environments, right? Mm-hmm. If it's muddy, it's muddy. The only thing that I won't do is obviously very inclement, dangerous weather, flooding, things like that. That'll be a no-go. Granted, we would have to work in it, but I'm not going to put our people in jeopardy from that standpoint. But your typical rain, cold, whatever. We're going to be out in the elements anyway. So that's the way we're going to train.
Nice.
And so they're going to have that. And from where we have that that ambulance sitting, I'm going to have Google mapped our time. How long does it take to get to Methodist West? Because that's close to us. And then how long does it get to go to Memorial Herman Katy? Again, whatever hospital designation they choose, that's how much time you have in the back of that ambulance. And then this is not going to be, flip on the lights and go. You have to treat that patient because breech presentation, prolapse cord, you may not have time to say, we'll wait till we get to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to be our sprint, is that live training. And then and we're doing it by shift. I didn't tell you that at the beginning, sorry. We're doing it by shift. And so I only have 5 crews at a time. So everybody's going to run through it. And at the end of that, we'll then debrief everybody. Every shift is going to get a different OB emergency. Because we all know how everybody likes to, hey, by the way, you're going to get prolapse cord this week. No, you're not. They got prolapse cord. You're going to get breech presentation, or you're going to get placenta previa, or something else. So, and maybe somebody will get just a normal birth. I don't know.
So okay, so we take this, and right again we have the value of starting it slow, building through. But there's a lot of value. We need to shift gears. We talk about it. At some point, I need to demonstrate this to you and show you,
right?
So you see what it is. And there needs to be a slower walkthrough of this where there's coaching that's appropriate and feedback is appropriate. And then we have to hit this point that I got to be hands off. Yeah. That you need to be able to screw this up.
Yep.
And then after the fact, we talk about it, we discuss it. Here's the feedback on it. And then the key to this thing is then do it again.
Yeah.
Do it again. Right. I'm not a big fan of the expression getting the reps, but I don't know any better way to say it. Like, you're just getting the reps on something. You're doing it over and over again until it gets more familiar. But it's not enough to demonstrate something and say, hey, you got it.
Right.
It's not enough for me to coach you through it and say, hey, you got it. Those are crucial and important, but there's got to be a point that I stand back and you don't have your safety net. Right. You've got to fly and go through it. Yeah. So
you have to be given the opportunity to fail.
Absolutely. Which the only true failure is giving up as it is. So we keep plugging away. Okay. But that's when learning goes. And there'll be another guest when we talk about instructional stuff, and she will tell you that the person talking is the person learning. So the more we have candidates talking about it, the more they're learning about it, the more we shut up and stand back and let them figure things out, the more they're learning.
Right.
So, all right. So something I did want to ask you, because I want to try and get some specific things to take out here. Was there an instructional activity you used as an FTO that every time you had a candidate, here's how we're teaching this thing, this practice, this activity, this whatever it may be? I know another FTO that we had talked about, he always loved the scavenger hunts. That's how we did familiarization.
Right.
He's like, I'm going to give you a thing, you go find it, and I'm going to time you.
So actually...
Any kind of things like that?
So I tried to take the scavenger hunt, right? And I all right, this is what we're going to do. I like the idea. And, of course, I'm excited about it, right? All right, yeah, okay, I'm going to time you, And I would try to, the first day, hey, find these items so you know where they're at. It's not always going to be the same list. And so I'd go make up another list. Next time, hey, okay, find these items, right? And they're fine. There's no time frame. Then we started to add time to it. Okay, you got 5 minutes. And then you try to start thinking of the obscure things you don't always know where they're at. They didn't think it was as fun as I thought it was.
So that was going to be one of my follow-up questions is, what are some of these ideas that really you were excited about? But
yeah, so that was kind of a big... And maybe I wasn't doing it right. I don't know. But that kind of fell flat. I would try to... The one thing I hated training about is driving territory. So boring for me. But it's like you got to know how to get out of the area. And so we would go to a neighborhood, we'd park, okay. At the time we had just a front cab. So they'd be in the back. They wouldn't necessarily know where we're at. All right, hey, this is where we're at. Get me to the hospital. Now we're in a non-pressure setting. We're not going emergency traffic. Some of those were good, but again, it's like, how do you get excited about showing somebody out of a neighborhood?
So what's one that got you excited?
One that got me excited?
What's something you taught, how you taught it, that was received with enthusiasm?
I think my trauma triad of death, now it's become the trauma diamond, but I was excited to build that, and I was excited to give that, and I think it was pretty well received by. I started out giving it to anybody that would listen, but I would sit down with the new hires that we would have, and that I'd be training, and we would just sit at the desk, and I would walk through it and talk about it, and give them the opportunity to ask questions, and I think that they usually enjoyed that one-on-one time and just the opportunity to have that discussion. Because I will say most people, they want to know things. Nobody wants to go in and be like, yeah, I'd rather just go in blind and figure it out. They want to have an idea about some things. And so then that would lead into, well, we have here's our cat tourniquet. And so, it would turn into, can you get your cat tourniquet on in 20 seconds? Because you can bleed out in 20 seconds, right? Depending on where you're at. First we do it on you, then can you get it on me in 20 seconds? And then it would progress into, hey, we happen to carry a junctional tourniquet that goes around the waist, and it's not a hard tourniquet to use, but there's a lot of moving parts, and you got to pull it right and all that. Yeah. So we'd pull that out and play with it, and so it always tended to be anything I would do would be well received if we talked about it first, and then we got to play with the stuff afterwards, because they could see it in action, right? And again, that's kind of the way I learned anyway. Is, okay, tell me your concept and then show me. And that, what do they say? Teach one, do one, something. I never did that very well, but that's kind of that was easy for me to learn, and it was easy for me to teach that way. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, I can't say that I had anybody that didn't enjoy those types of trainings. And of course, that would lead into our blood products, and we could hit that. Yeah.
I think there's something else that you had in that trauma package that appealed to me. Mm-hmm. Was there a good handful of case studies in there? Oh, yeah. That this wasn't just here's information, here's procedures, here's technical skills, that it was here's real life context where this is important. And I think that's a big part of education is why should you care about any of this? And I think those case studies really demonstrated that, especially with that transition, because you took all the classic care of just 2 large bore IVs and dump all the saline in the world in them, and here you go. Into this gunshot victim, but to take this case study and it be, here's the context that I'm going to give you information and I'm going to give you a place to plug this in. So
yeah, because I start that one out with the scenario of a call that I was actually on, and then we talk about what I did and then what I should have done.
Yeah.
So
I think that lends a lot of value to it. So all right, well we're coming around to the end of this. What kind of last comments do you have? What lasting impressions do you have of having trained people in the field? How did it inspire you to move into the office and oversee training? Any closing comments you want to throw in here?
So for me, obviously, learning a lot about people and how people learn as an FTO, and then being willing to be humbled and be like, hey, I know I'm not doing this right, and then seeking out that help to say, how can I be better? Obviously, I went to you a lot when you were there, and be like, hey, I'm not clicking with this person. What can we do? What can I do differently? And I think that probably is the biggest thing. Asking that question, what could I have done differently? If we take that question, and this is something that comes from the camp that I run. Mary Ellen is the other camp director, her. And from the time I've known her for 30 years, and that's the one thing she always thought, like we'd have 2 campers fighting, and you ask a camper, what could you have done differently? Well, most campers, nothing. He started it, right? But we have a choice in our actions. And so if I take that question and I apply that to my ability to teach, if I'm not successful, what could I have done differently? If I am successful, what could I have done differently to be more successful? And so I think when we truly stop and ask ourselves that question, as long as we don't reply, well, nothing, I couldn't do it, it's on them. It's always on me. And this goes to the ownership board, but what could I have done differently to reach that person? I told you the first time I went to that guy, hey, it's your responsibility to come to me. Well, what could I have done differently in that? I could have gone to him and said, hey, what are you weak on? What do you think you're weak on? Let's focus on some things that you're interested in and all that. Let me show you the things that you need to know for this job. Let me show you where we get fuel. Let me show you where we get our supplies. Let me show you, if you have a problem with your truck, how you report it up the chain. These are things that people come in that we take for granted every day, but they don't know because they're brand new,
Everybody has to learn how to poop.
Right, absolutely. And then you've got, obviously there's a clinical aspect of things. There's the guidelines and things like that, medications. I mean, I could probably jump on your ambulance and you've got something I'm not familiar with. Yes, it is upon me to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm your FTO, it's my job to ensure that you know how to use that. You know what it is, when we use it, what the contraindications are. Because if I didn't do that and we have a mistake error, or a medication error rather, that's on me. I'm the in charge of that truck. So everything that happens on that truck is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you make the mistake or not. Your mistake is my mistake. And if I adopt that, we become better.
Yeah.
Because they're going to see that, and then they're going to turn around and be like, well, that's on me. No, that's on me. No, that's on me. And now you're fighting for sharing the responsibility, and you're getting better without even knowing it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's really kind of the biggest. FTOing isn't that hard. And again, you showed me that when you were in the training officer position, or the training chief position. So that when you left, I was very excited about the things that you had done there. And I wanted that to continue. And I'm be honest, I was a little afraid of what if some new guy gets in there and he's like, he's not that guy. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try it because I really wanted to continue that ownership aspect of things, that let's be better. Let's be the best. Let's not settle for mediocrity. Let's, all those things were just things that I wanted. And again, you had taught me how to develop the lesson plans. You had sent me, when you were there, you sent a group of us to the National EMS Educators. We were actually supposed to go, and then COVID hit and we all had to do it from our houses. But I didn't even know that organization existed till you got there. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's learning about that. You showed us things like NEMSMA, the management aspect of things. You showed us, I think you initially introduced us to NAEMSP, the National Association of EMS Physicians. And so all of a sudden you see all these things that are out there with resources and availabilities. And you're like, oh, these are the things I need to be better. And so I started joining these things. And, okay, great. I get a magazine in the mail. Oh, I got a pen that says that, whatever. I'm not doing it for those things. I'm doing it for the knowledge, the content, the networking, the education, and learning how to be a better educator so that when the next new guy comes who may learn differently than I do, I can learn how to address that and teach that and meet them where they're at to get them the tools that they need to be successful. Because that is my job. My job is to make you successful.
And I think it's worth mentioning that you'll never have all of the answers.
Oh,
so
rarely do I have any answers, but I try.
I'm going to leave this with my chunk of advice and instruction in education. FTOs, get your notes if you're still listening here. This is my little nugget of wisdom, and I'm going to say it, and you'll be like, yeah, you do that all the time. Let somebody ask you a question, and then don't answer it. Throw it right back. It's very easy with, what do you think of that? Mm-hmm. Where do you think we should look for that answer? What are some of the experiences you have about that material? You may have the answer. I'm able to say, Jay, it's this.
Right.
But you're not learning that. Then you're right. At best, that's memorization. And
at
hopefully
best,
you can recall it later. And that's not knowledge acquisition. That's not learning.
Well, and then how do I know that's the right answer?
And then how do you know it's the right answer? This is true. It's a lot of faith. But don't get your confidence shaken when somebody comes and asks you a question and you don't have the answer right away. First of all, there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what? I'm going to have to look at that. I don't know how many times there are. I got 3 emails this morning from a couple lieutenants that just came on tour, and it was, hey, I got your email. I'm going to have to get back to you. Give me a few minutes. All right? A whole lot more credibility in finding the right answer than trying to blow smoke and bluff, right? Because that's going to fall apart on you.
Very quickly, too.
And then when you have the right answers, people are going to, is it the right answer, though? I don't know, right? And then learning comes from that research and picking apart these ideas. So don't be afraid to send it back at somebody. A candidate says, hey, here's my question. Now, there's some things that there are the answer, that it's, hey, where do I go to reset my password to get into Operative IQ?
Right.
Where do you think you could? Yeah. Come on, don't be a jerk, right?
Right.
But if it's, we talked about a couple other clinical concepts in different episodes, but if we talk about heart failure concepts, and it's, hey, what about this kind of medication management and heart failure, and why do we do the things that we do? Send that one back, and let's have a discussion. Let's pull some articles. Let's get some other material, and make that a bigger opportunity than it is. You don't have to pull the I don't know and be scared of I don't know. I'm pretty sure y'all have heard me say I don't know, right? it's an appropriate response. I think it's an honest response at the very least. So don't be unnerved when you don't know. Just know how to respond to that. Here's where we go look for answers. And I've told all of you this, like memory things, memorization, garbage. Reference your guidelines. I want you practiced in knowing where in the guidelines to look. That's always been a thing with me, rather than I have every last word memorized, because you remember something wrong.
Right.
But know where to send for those answers. Know how to engage that person. And like I said, don't be afraid just because you don't have the answer sitting right in front of you.
And also that kind of piggybacks into, we're talking about education, your own personal education. This is where I would encourage people to pursue that degree, whether it's an associate's, whether it's a bachelor's, a master's, whatever. I know we have people in EMS, well, I don't need a degree to do my job. No, you don't. You need the certification, you've got that. But just like you were saying, looking up those articles, one thing that school definitely taught me when I was getting my bachelor's degree was how to research, how to learn how to go to things, and then cite those things when I'm passing them off or using them in a lecture or whatever. Because if you don't know, you can go and research a GEMS article, great. But they've done the research, and if you look at their references, there's all kinds of stuff in there. They're giving you their opinion about what they read. Mm-hmm. And if you take that opinion as fact, well, now you've just taken somebody else's opinion as fact. Go to the original articles, research those things, learn how to find the research to the answers you're looking for. And the other beauty is a lot of times you'll find things that you had no idea. You're just like, well, this is based on an article that's got a pool of 5 people. You're like, how's this a fact? It's only 5 people or 100 people. And then you'll see a study that'll have like thousands of people in it. And you're like, okay, this is more, And so I definitely encourage people to continue their education in that, because it helps you in the long run. Not only moving up, but just becoming a more well-rounded individual and learning the things that you need to learn.
I like it.
So that was kind of a tangent. Sorry.
Well, Jay, I appreciate you coming on,
yeah,
sharing some of your experiences and ideas with us. Always
thanks
a
for
pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening in, and we'll catch you for the next one.